And yes, here we are, back
Black?
for Bloodlines and Betrayal without Billy the Liquor Guy. And today we are talking about the unsolved case, or is it unsolved, of JonBenét Ramsey. Yes, Dave and I have discussed this case at length, and the details are very, very sketchy, and it makes one discuss and ponder if it was an inside job or was it an outside intruder. And the details of the case, JonBenét obviously was a beauty pageant contestant. I should say she competed.
Beauty pageant contestant, right?
She competed. Yeah, she competed in child beauty pageant contestants. The mother, Patsy Ramsey, was a former beauty queen, so she got JonBenét involved very, very early. So it's a very confusing, intricate case that nobody really understood. And even police failed to secure the crime scene. There were people coming in and out. So there was a lot behind this. And nobody really has gotten answers. And part of the problem was the parents did not cooperate early on. So this was Christmas 1996. Okay. She was a child beauty pageant winner. She was killed in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado.
The basement, discovered in the basement.
She was discovered in the basement, but the time of death has been a subject of conjecture. Nobody really knows. She was found. This is what was strange. Her body was found in the home's basement around 7 hours after she had been reported missing. So there was what happened was the Ramseys got up that morning and there was a ransom note. There was a ransom note that basically said, and it's strange because the amount of money they asked for was like exactly what Mr. Ramsey had in a bonus or a savings. I can't remember which, but the ransom note said, listen carefully, we're a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She's safe, unharmed. If you want to see her in 1997, you must follow our instructions in the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills. The remaining $18,000 will be in $20 bills. That's strange to begin with. You're going to have 18 grand in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attache to the back. When you get home, you'll attache. What does that mean?
It's like a briefcase.
Okay. When you get home, you'll put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you to arrange an earlier delivery of the money. Any deviation of the instructions will result in immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied the remains for a proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, the police, FBI, will result in your daughter being beheaded If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned. We are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Do not try to grow a brain, John. You're not the only fat cat around. So don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours, and it's up to you now. So that was the ransom note, and it's signed Victory SBTC. Okay. So the only people in the house were the immediate family, John and Patsy Ramsey, their son Burke. The ransom note contained specific instructions about contacting police and friends. But Patsy, that stupid bitch, telephoned the police at 5:52 a.m. She also called family and friends. Two police officers responded to the 911 call and arrived at the Ramsey home within 3 minutes. They conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not find any sign of forced entry. Officer Rick French went to the basement, came to a door that was secured by an additional wooden latch at the top of the frame. He paused, but he walked without opening it. French later explained.
That's weird.
Yeah, French later explained that he was looking for an exit route used by the kidnapper, since the wooden latch was holding the door closed from the inside of the house. The kidnapper could not have used this door. And then the closed latch ruled out as a possible exit. And that's where JonBenét's body was later found. With JonBenét still missing, John made arrangements to pay the ransom, which is puzzling to me because on Christmas Day, what banks are open?
None.
Okay. That's what I'm thinking.
But this was, hold on. It was discovered on December 26th, 1996. So there could have been banks open on December 26th.
No, I thought it was 25th. It was 25th.
It says here 26th.
Does it say the 26th?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Christmas Day.
No.
It was the night of the 25th. You're right. So it was the 26th.
So
okay.
Could have gone to a bank the next day.
Yeah. Okay. So I got that wrong. Okay.
Yep.
So a forensics team was dispatched to the house. The team initially believed that the child had been kidnapped, and JonBenét's bedroom was the only room in the house that was quartered off to prevent contamination of evidence. No precautions were taken to prevent contamination of evidence in the rest of the house. Meanwhile, friends, victim advocates, the Ramsey's family minister arrived at the home to show support. Visitors picked up and cleaned surfaces, possibly destroying evidence. Boulder detective Linda Arden arrived at 8 a.m. Mountain Time in anticipation of further instructions by the kidnappers, but there was never an attempt by anyone to claim the money. So that's strange to begin with. So they're there. I mean, she called at 5:52. They're there. The detective arrives at 8, and they're waiting around, for the ransom call. So at 1 o'clock, the detective Arden asked John Ramsey and Fleet White, who was a family friend, to search the house just to see if anything seems amiss. They started the search in the basement, and John opened the latched door where Officer French had overlooked. because obviously he was looking for an exit for the kidnappers. The daughter's body lay in one of the rooms. JonBenét's mouth was covered with duct tape. A nylon cord was around her wrists and her neck. Her torso was covered in a white blanket. John picked up her body and rushed upstairs, which again was stupid, which moved the crime scene and further contaminated everything. He should have left the body where it was and notified police, because by him picking up the body, you just contaminated the crime scene. So, it further disturbed any forensics for the forensics team. Each of the Ramseys provided handwriting, blood, and hair samples to the police. John and Patsy participated in a preliminary interview for more than 2 hours. Burke was also interviewed within the first few weeks of JonBenét's death. So it was the autopsy revealed that, now this was the strangest thing. She was killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. The official cause of death was asphyxia, was the strangulation, but it was used. There was a garrote used.
Right.
A garrote hasn't been used since like the 1800s.
Right.
There was no evidence of conventional rape, although sexual assault could not be ruled out. No semen was found. There was evidence that there had been a vaginal injury. Evidence also suggested that the paintbrush used as the garrote was also used for the sexual assault, which makes me want to puke. At the time of the autopsy, the pathologist recorded that it appeared the vaginal area was wiped with a cloth and her death was ruled a homicide. The garrote was made with the length of the nylon cord and a broken handle of the paintbrush, and it was tied behind her neck and used to strangle her. Part of the bristle end of the paintbrushes were found in a tub containing Patsy's art supplies, but the bottom third of the garrote, the paintbrush handle, was never found, despite extensive searching of the house. The autopsy also revealed vegetable and fruit material, which may represent pineapple that JonBenét had eaten a few hours before her death. Photographs of the home taken on the day when JonBenét's body was found show a bowl of pineapple in the kitchen table with the spoon of it. However, neither John nor Patsy remembered putting a bowl on the table or feeding pineapple to JonBenét. Police reported that they found Patsy Ramsey's fingerprints on the bowl. So in 2003, forensic investigators extracted enough material from a mixed blood sample found in JonBenét's underwear to establish a DNA profile. The DNA belonged to an unknown male and excluded the DNA of the Ramseys. The DNA was submitted to the FBI's index system, CODIS. You know CODIS. CODIS is a system where all criminals, if you commit a crime, your DNA goes into CODIS. It's a database that contains more than 1.6 million DNA profiles, but the sample matched nothing in the database. In October 2016, a report said a new forensic analysis with more sensitive techniques like touch DNA revealed that the original DNA contained genetic markers from 2 individuals other than JonBenét. So James Kohler, who was the lead investigator for the DA's office, said there were additional traces of male DNA found on the cord, the garrote, and the paintbrush. The Boulder District Attorney Marcy Lacey did not mention, and that there were 6 separate DNA samples belonging to unknown individuals that were found by this test. Former FBI profiler Candace DeLong believes the DNA having shown up identically in several places, multiple surfaces, belongs to the killer. Fordham's former Adams County, Colorado District Attorney Bob Grant, who assisted the Boulder County DA's office for many years, also believes the DNA evidence is significant, saying that any resolution of the case would explain how DNA showed up in several places of JonBenét's clothing. And forensic pathologist Michael Baden said trace amounts of DNA can get on places in clothing from all different non-suspicious means. There's no forensic evidence to show this is a stranger murderer. And the reason he says this is because the crime scene was contaminated. There were so many people in the house. The unknown trace DNA could be from any friends, family that initially came over. So the investigation, the Boulder police really focused on exclusively John and Patsy Ramsey. But in 1997, October of 1997, they had over 1,600 people in their index of persons of interest of the case, following, pedophiles, sex offenders, and such. But there were so many errors made initially in the initial investigation that complicated the resolution of the murder. The errors included loss and contaminated evidence, lack of experienced and technical staff on the investigation, evidence shared with the Ramseys, and delayed formal interviews with the parents. Other issues included misleading information intentionally leaked by the Boulder police in hopes of creating public pressure on John and Patsy to better cooperate with police interview requests, which contributed to the intense media attention surrounding the family. So they obviously thought the parents did it, because you're inside the house, the parents' house, the body's found inside the house. There's no evidence that there was any type of intruder. It just doesn't, it didn't add up.
Did not add up. And it was a thing where the police messed up so much. JonBenét's father discovering the body, bringing it up, the criminal evidence.
He should have left it there. Yep, 100%.
Inviting the families over.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh my God, my daughter! Please come over and support us." The minister's over.
If they weren't, so that makes me suspicious of the whole ransom case with nobody claiming it. Now, once the police get called, and if this was indeed an outsider, once the police got called, did they think, "Oh shit, you know what? They're not even going to respond to us. They're just gonna." They just called the police, or I think well, there's a couple of things that happened that I think, those are the things that messed it up, right? Messed up the DNA, messed up all those kind of things.
Yeah, contaminated the evidence for sure.
Patsy died obviously of cancer in 2006, so it's not like you can go interview her anymore. But it's so I saw the father get interviewed in a recent, what was that, Netflix, or what was that on? I can't remember.
He's done a couple. The one on Netflix I thought was very good. They did one on A&E, I believe. But yeah, they've done several documentaries on it. I know they did a Dateline. The guy that was paramount was Detective Lou Smith. He came out of retirement in early 1997 to assist the Boulder County District Attorney's Office with the case. In May of 1998, he presented his findings to the Boulder police and other staff members of the DA's office, concluding that the evidence pointed away from the Ramseys. They were unable to successfully challenge the police department's belief that the Ramseys were guilty. The DA's office sought to take control of the investigation due to the animosity to the police. There was animosity between the police and the DA's office, the pressure to obtain a conviction. Colorado Governor Roy Romer interceded and named Michael Caine as special prosecutor to initiate a grand jury. Now, this is what people never knew. The grand jury was convened and evidence was presented to indict John and Patsy Ramsey. And this wasn't found out until 20 or 30 years later, 20 years later. And they voted not to convict, press charges. But Lou Smith and Steve Thomas, Lou Smith was the guy who worked on the case to his death. They resigned. Smith, because he believed the investigation was incompetent and overlooked the intruder hypothesis. And Thomas, because he believed the DA's office and had interfered and failed to support his hypothesis of the case. So the grand jury was convened in 1998, and they were going to indict the Ramseys for charges related to the case. And 1999, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing the child at risk in a way that led to her death based on probable cause standard applied in grand jury proceedings. Now, Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter did not prosecute them because he did not believe that he could meet the higher standard of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So the grand jury did vote to indict them. And the DA said, I can't take this to court. There's no way I'm going to win beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no evidence. It's all circumstantial. Mary Lacey was the next DA who took over, she was the next DA that took over the investigation in 2002. In April of 2003, she agreed with a federal judge that the libel case, that evidence in the suit is more consistent with a theory that an intruder murdered JonBenét than it was that the Ramseys did. And then it wasn't until 1998 that the Boulder County District Attorney's Office developed newly DNA technology and testing techniques that excluded the Ramseys as suspects in the case. And Lacey publicly exonerated the Ramseys. Now, part of that was because the Ramseys stopped cooperating early on. Once they found out, the questions were suspect to them, they were treated as suspects, they shut down. So this case has been investigated, and nobody knew that they were actually indicted, and the prosecutor declined to take it to trial. So in 2009, the indictment officially expired because of the statute of limitations. In 2010, the Boulder police reopened the cold case. New interviews were conducted, fresh inquiry by a committee that included state and federal investigators. Police were expected to use the latest DNA technology in their investigation. There was no new information from the interviews, and it's been reported since 2016 that the investigation into her death continues to be an active homicide case. There's been people who have disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, stating exonerating anyone based on a small piece of evidence that has not yet proven to be connected to the crime is absurd. Unknown DNA from JonBenét's clothing has to be the focus of the investigation at this point in time, and that until one can prove otherwise, the suspect is the donator of that unknown DNA. We all shed DNA all the time with our skin cells. It can be deposited anywhere, anytime, for any reasons. To clear someone just on the premise of touch DNA, especially when you have a situation where the crime scene was never secured at the beginning, is really a stretch. So he believes that the DA at the time, Marcy Lacy, the public exoneration of the Ramseys was a big slap in the face to Chief Beckner of the Boulder Police Department and the core group of detectives who've been working the case for years. So the theories and suspects. There are two primary theories about JonBenét's death. In the family member theory, JonBenét was killed by one or more family members. In the intruder theory, an intruder committed the crime. There was a lot of people that thought Burke may have committed the crime. Burke, the son was like 12 years old. I can't remember how old he was. Boulder police initially,
and then they wrote the ransom note to cover for Burke. Well, my question with Burke is the reason why I don't buy Burke is the groat thing.
That's what I said. The same thing. Who would know it?
12-year-old would know how to use a groat.
No, he wouldn't know how to make one.
He wouldn't know how to make one. Then the other thing that gave them a chance that they were in it was also the groat. Like what mother or father would know how to use a groat? That wasn't a basic criminal.
A hardened criminal would. You're right. Yeah,
a hardened criminal would, but I would be surprised that a father or the mother would, unless there was some sort of like
they had no reason to.
Unless there was some sort of secret tantric, deviant. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, which I like,
and she was sexually assaulted with the paintbrush.
Right.
I mean, what parent would do that?
Well,
that's what gets me.
If there was evidence before that situation that she had done things like that, then I would buy that could be the case. But it didn't seem like that was really, even when they tried to draw some conclusions that Patsy was a hothead from time to time.
Yes.
Demanding of her. That's still a large stretch to go that she's doing, deviant stuff. So I thought that was, and I don't think that was atypical. And maybe atypical for people from Colorado, but definitely not atypical of people from the South.
They were very kind people. Yes.
Pageant daughter. Like that didn't, like I would, in the South, that's like a big thing, So, I even though people found it to be shocking, I think when you go to the South, like a lot more of these like child pageant things are old Southern traditions. Just
they're more prominent, way more prominent. Yes,
right. They were in Colorado, but they brought that kind of fit tradition with them. So I think that's at first I thought it was being from the Northeast. When you heard the case, you thought, wow, that's weird. But once you become an adult and you realize like different things in different areas, like in the South, like that's much more of a thing. It's like,
yes, it is
almost like the cheerleading at the younger ages, how they all do.
Correct.
So that I wouldn't, maybe is that over the top parents? Yeah, but that's still a large stretch to say they would do this kind of a thing.
It just didn't make sense. It made no sense. It made no sense.
But normally in cases like this, I would say it's the parents or it's the brother, or because it
would have to be someone close enough to her. Like, how would they get her out of her room without screaming? Like,
my thing is that if it wasn't any family member or direct family member, it was someone that knew of them or knew enough about them to know how they could get into their home, scouted it out, maybe even somebody that was from the town or something, like, or lived in the town. Doesn't mean they're.
But they don't even know for sure. Like, was she killed in the basement? Was she placed in the basement? One of the theories was that Patsy, in a fit of rage, because JonBenét wet the bed, strangled her. To cover up what happened after mistakenly thinking she was already dead. However, Patsy did not have a known history of uncontrolled anger. Burke Ramsey, who was 9 at the time, he was interviewed several times. He said, "We didn't get spanked, nothing of the sort, nothing close, nothing near laying a finger on us, let alone killing your child."
What is Burke like now?
Burke lives a very sheltered, quiet life. He works in IT, I believe. Right. He works primarily from home. He's been interviewed 3 times, and a review from a child psychologist stated that it appeared that the Ramseys had a healthy, caring family relationship. In 1998, Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner said during an interview with news reporters that Burke was not involved in the killing of his sister. In 1999, the office also reiterated Burke was not a suspect. The investigators have never considered him a suspect. And then the Ramseys offered $100,000 reward in a newspaper ad in 1997. 3 days later, more than 4 months after the body of the daughter was found, they submitted for the first time to separate formal interviews at the Boulder County Center. Now that, to me, was a huge problem. Had they from the start, just interviewed, they could have eliminated themselves as suspects, and the investigation could have spread out and looked at other people. The fact that a Colorado grand jury voted to indict the parents blows my mind. But they indicted them. Now, they did not indict them on murder. They indicted them on 2 counts of child abuse, and said the parents did unlawfully, knowingly, recklessly, feloniously permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat to the child's life or health.
What was
which
the
resulted.
situation?
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. Now, one of the how about this? One of the experts who testified in the case was DNA specialist Barry Scheck. Barry Scheck from the OJ trial and forensic expert. This guy's a genius. Henry Lee.
Say?
He basically said that you can't trust the DNA because it's insufficient for prosecution because there was too much contamination, way too much contamination, because of the people in the house, the crime scene.
How about with AI? Can you? Is there any more advanced DNA things that they could separate?
It was a touch DNA, but no, I mean, yeah, they could if they were able to get everyone who was in the house together and get DNA samples from them. They didn't do that at the time.
Didn't do any of that. Like, I always wondered if there was, it didn't have to be a relative, but a neighbor or somebody that was like a deviant that they didn't know was the. You ever see the movie? You ever see the movie? What was the movie? Where the guy next door had his where he figures out that when his daughter's kidnapped and what the hell was the movie?
Well, with Liam Neeson?
No, not Liam. It was the next door neighbor.
Oh, okay.
That actually had her kidnapped, and he was seemed like a normal guy, but he was a little off. But like, oh man, what movie was this? What movie was it? Guy Next Door was the kidnapper. What was the movie?
Now this was the guy. Lou Smith was the detective who investigated this to his death. He concluded an intruder had committed the crime. On the night JonBenét was killed, there had been two windows that were slightly left.
I remember that. Yeah.
To allow for electrical cords for the outside Christmas lights to pass through a broken basement window and one unlocked door. Smith's theory was that someone entered the Ramseys' home through a broken basement window.
Right.
And critics have questioned his theory because there was an intact cobweb on the basement window. The steel grate that covered the window also had undisturbed cobwebs, and the foliage around the grate had been undisturbed. There were also cobwebs on the tracks of various windows, dust, debris, and some stills. Smith believed the intruder subdued JonBenét using a stun gun, took her down to the basement, and JonBenét was killed, and a ransom note was left. Smith's theory was supported by former FBI agent Johnny Douglas, who had been hired by the Ramsey family. Believing that the Ramseys were innocent, Smith resigned, like we talked about, 5 days after the grand jury was convened against him. And he died. Smith died in 2010. Author Stephen Singular, in his book Presumed Guilty, refers to consultations with cybercrime specialists to argue JonBenét attracted a ton of child pornographers and pedophiles affiliated with the child pageant scene. Singular further believes that the investigation was overly focused on the Ramsey parents, hampering the investigation into alternate scenarios. But the Ramseys, I still blame them because they lawyered up and they stopped cooperating early on once they found out that they were suspects. Mm-hmm. And now this is also interesting. It was determined that there had been more than 100 burglaries in the Ramsey's neighborhood in the months before JonBenét's murder. There were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius of the Ramsey's home. So, my God, it's like a pedophile's paradise.
Yeah, well, that's strange too. Wasn't that a very wealthy suburb?
Yes, because I remember they thought it was odd that they asked for $118K because I believe that was the exact Christmas bonus that Mr. Ramsey received.
Who would he tell that to?
That's the thing. We don't know. One of the individuals who Smith identified before he died was Gary Howard Olivia, who was arrested for 2 counts of attempted sexual exploitation of a child and 1 count of sexual exploitation of a child in June 2016, according to Boulder's Daily Camera. Olivia, a registered sex offender, was publicly identified in October of 2002 on an episode of 48 Hours Investigates. Now, this was the killing of JonBenét, The Truth Uncovered, broadcast by A&E in September 2016. I watched this. DNA forensic scientist.
That's the movie. The Lovely Bones. Did you ever see that movie?
Yes, I did see that. Yes.
You know where Mark Wahlberg figures out that the next door neighbor?
Yeah. He was the one who did it. The A&E one said that the DNA evidence basically shows an unidentified male committed the crime. The district attorney's office is investigating pedophiles, indicated to former Denver prosecutor Craig Silverman that the district attorney's office followed the intruder theory. The Ramseys developed a relationship with DA Marcy Lacey because she was the one who exonerated them. And she criticized the city mayor. She criticized the police chief. Once you have conceded the possibility of an intruder, I don't see how any Ramsey could ever successfully be prosecuted. So there was testing for touch DNA. He also said Lacey strongly supported the intruder theory and talked about it with the staff. The problem is there's been confessions. So here's one of them. John Mark Carr, he was a 41-year-old school teacher. He was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand on October 15, 2006, following a false confession to murdering JonBenét. Carr claimed to have drugged, sexually assaulted, and accidentally killed her. According to CNN, authorities also say they did not find any evidence linking Carr to the crime scene. Like he was nowhere to be found. He knew basic facts that were publicly known, but obviously the police left out some details that only the killer would know. And they did an autopsy. No drugs were found in her system, and his DNA did not match. Now, the Ramseys filed a libel defamation lawsuit against several people and companies who have reported on the case starting in 1999. Star Magazine, American Media, on their son's behalf. The big one was, this was the one I watched. It was in 2016. ABC had a series about it, like if I Did It. And they had several experts on to conclude who they thought did it. It was the case of JonBenét Ramsey, and Werner Spitz was on it. Werner Spitz has testified everywhere. He is a leading pathologist expert. I believe he testified in the OJ case. He accused Burke Ramsey of killing his sister. Burke filed a defamation suit against Spitz, and they also would include Lynn Wood. They filed a $150 million punitive and compensatory lawsuit, and they sued CBS at the end of 2016. And then he also filed an additional civil lawsuit that accused CBS, the production company, Critical Content LLC, and the 7 experts who were on the panel of defamation of character. It was a $250 million lawsuit. And they ended up settling. They tried to have it dismissed. It wasn't. In 2019, they settled the lawsuit. So
it's a fascinating case with no real answers. And I mean,
well, there are answers. Like, it was bungled from the start. You have to admit that. You have to admit that the Ramseys were absolute morons for calling people to come over. You know, like if I was provided a ransom note that my brother was kidnapped, I would write back and say, hey, you can have him, good for you. No, I mean, you want him, you got him. He's all yours. Would you call police if you had a ransom note that your kid was kidnapped? Or would you follow the orders and get the money and deliver it? That's the question. Because I've heard both ways. I've heard both sides of people not involving police, and because they always tell you that, you know, we're watching you. So if you go to the police, we're gonna know, and we're gonna kill your kid. So
it's hard to know.
And I personally,
I know the answer to that one.
I do. I would not involve police. If I could get my hands on the kind of money needed, I'd pay the ransom. If it meant being able to get my loved one back, I mean, you gotta ask for proof of life,
yes.
And you know, the pickup spot and all that stuff.
They had no way to contact them. They had the kidnapper had to contact them, right?
Yeah, you had to wait. You had to wait for the kidnapper to contact them, which they didn't in the span of 8 hours. Now, after that long a period of time, yes, I probably would have acquiesced.
If you believe the theory that I was an outside person, what I believe happened is,
I think it was an outside person. They've been ruled out.
They did whatever crazy things they were going to do and accidentally killed her before they got to have an opportunity to either cash in, you know what I'm saying? So that may have been the case there, and that's why you didn't hear from them, because. So
you think they actually initially came in with the plan to kidnap her, and they accidentally
they were gonna do some things to her or whatever, and
with the Garreau, and she had blunt force trauma to the head, and so you think she was accidentally killed. They couldn't get her out of the house.
Or maybe somebody got frustrated with her when they were kidnapping her.
But how could the parents sleep through that? That's a
great question. I don't know how. Like, the only thing I don't know.
You can cover her mouth, whatever, but like if she's going ballistic, maybe they did use a stun gun, like Lou Smith surmised.
Yeah,
and we're dragging her out, but it doesn't explain either. They came to the conclusion there's no way we can get out of here without someone knowing. We just got to kill her and abandon ship.
That could have been the case. Yeah, we're not going to get the money. We got to get out before we get caught.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to assume.
Or they accidentally killed her as they were dragging her or something like that.
Yeah.
Or whatever they were doing with the Garreau, and they killed her, and they're like, shit. we're not gonna be able, we killed her. We're not gonna be able to get the money.
We're fucked. Yeah. I mean, because you have to assume they found Patsy Ramsey noticed she was missing at 5:52 a.m. So the killers clearly were there, at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m.? And that must have been when it all went down. And I think that it was a botched kidnapping. And they realized either there's no way we're going to make it out of here with her.
We got to get out before we get caught.
She'll be able to describe us. We got to kill her.
Yeah, we got to kill her. We got to get out before we get caught.
Yeah. And they tried to hide the body in the basement even more. They tried to hide the body. So, and that
what was crazy was how fast the father found it.
Well, the father started in the basement first, and he checked the area where the officer did not. That's a little bit suspect. Like the officer's 2 feet from the body, and he doesn't check that door, that little wooden area.
Is there ever a conspiracy theory that somebody on law enforcement was involved?
Not law enforcement, no. It was always the family. It was always the conspiracy theory was
related to law enforcement. Like someone in law enforcement might have known something.
The conspiracy theory was Burke did it.
Yeah, I know, but that one was at first but then when you hear the garrote, that's just an impossibility.
I agree. I 100% agree. I 100% agree with that one. I don't think
did someone accidentally create a garrote? I don't know enough about that stuff.
No, fucking nobody uses a garrote.
I mean, I don't even know
I didn't even know what a garrote was until I read about this case. And would a 9-year-old be strong enough to strangle someone with it? No. And Burke's put up with this forever. So the bottom line is it's an active investigation. There's been people that have confessed to it falsely. I think ultimately it's going to come down to just luck, like the Golden State serial rapist. And maybe they have to do something like that where they put the DNA in ancestry.com, use a third party and see if anything pops. Because that's how they've caught several killers. Like the ancestry.com, you send your DNA in and they tell you if you have any relatives anywhere.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Did you remember the Golden State killer?
No.
The rapist?
No.
So the Golden State rapist, he was like 75 when he was caught. He terrorized California in like the 60s and 70s.
I kind of a little bit.
And the only reason he was caught was because the police went to ancestry.com and submitted his DNA. They found relatives of him. And then they ruled out each relative until they found him. So that's what I think they would have to do in this case.
Yeah, garrote is a wild an apparatus with a handle on each end.
Yeah, it's you twist it around the neck to choke. That's why, I don't think a 9-year-old would be able to do that. And the Ramseys were ruled out. The DNA in the underwear would have to be matched to something. So I do believe it was an intruder. We just heard there was 100 burglaries in the area in the months leading up to JonBenét being kidnapped.
Right, so there's something there.
And the number of pedophiles within 2 miles of the house, there were like 38.
Which is crazy.
That's a pedophile's paradise.
Insane.
You got, and I'm sure,
Nowadays you would almost, if something like that happened now, you'd almost think it was involved with a trafficking case.
Oh, 100%.
How-
100%.
So if you were to go back, that was before trafficking was a big thing. I wonder if that was a trafficking case. They were going to try and traffic her, and then
That would have been very interesting.
yes,
because they would have got a ton
it went
of money
wrong,
for
and
her.
they accidentally killed her, right?
Yeah.
And they were going to hold her for ransom to traffic her.
But if they were going to do that, why are you using a garrote? The garrote is just dangerous on such a little kid. That's my only thing is like a garrote would be dangerous to use to subdue a child.
Yes.
Like I would have.
If it's a if it's a child trafficking case, if this was today, you would say this is a child trafficking case, possibly.
Yeah,
and if something like that was used, you might get someone that is from a brute situation. Like some of the trafficking that you have issues with trafficking across from North America to South America.
They usually inject you with like Special K.
Now they do. Now that's what would happen. But haven't you seen the case of? Did you see the recent video where there was a person in plain sight went and tried to abduct a mother and a daughter and abduct them? Yeah, and some people that were in the parking lot of the grocery store pulled.
It was in the parking lot of a grocery store.
Yeah, a lot of these things are happening.
Jesus Christ!
Like Walmarts or Targets, maybe not. Maybe it was like a Walmart, and they the people in the area fought the guy off. They realized something was going down, and they fought him off so they could get away. And then he jumped in the car and escaped, and they caught him down the road. But it was a human trafficking case. So now listen, if you go back to the 90s, there was definitely, I'm sure there was human trafficking going on, but it was probably not as widespread known as it is now.
Right.
So people would not have had the information that this could even be a case. So if
Anders.
Who's Anders?
He commented that they could charge them according to the grand jury's indictment. They absolutely could have, but
they didn't think they could get a conviction.
Proving murder, yeah. They charged them with child neglect, and the prosecutor even said there's not enough evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt we could get a conviction.
That's the.
I don't think the parents were involved. I really
no. I was trying to think of my theory on the trafficking. If
the trafficking is believable.
Trafficking back in the 90s, if that was going on in the 90s, okay, it was much more secretive probably back then. If that was going on, and they did it more from a ransom standpoint,
it would have to be like some.
Because nowadays they're getting money. The traffickers are getting money from someone in another country to do.
Yes, to pay for it. Yes.
But back then they may have tried to traffic and get ransom money, and then if they tried to traffic and get ransom money, and then they had they were. The only way they knew to control was a garrote, which is
That's the only thing I don't believe.
Well, could a trafficker use rudimentary methods to control? That's the question. Probably. I bet you if you were poor, a poor person as a trafficker, you might use a rudimentary method.
But knowing that the danger outweigh like the chances of fucking up outweigh the chances of
being. Are the henchmen involved? So in this trafficking stuff, the big problem is they send a henchman out to get the people.
Yeah, they do.
And today, this is what goes on. Okay.
Yes.
They send the henchman out. They're not sending the person who is in control.
Right. It's not the person with the brains.
It's right.
100%.
So they're sending out whatever you got to do to control this.
They're sending the muscle. Yes.
And that could be a rudimentary situation, a sicko with a rudimentary. And then that would be that. Then that child, they probably had the intention of bringing them to this person.
Yeah.
Who knew enough of the JonBenét in them to get the money, and then the question is like, how did they know to abandon it?
Well, if
I bet you they were told if you accidentally kill her or something, you abandon. Something goes wrong.
If your theory is correct, they would have put the garrote around her and they would have dragged her. They would have had to drag her down the corridor, down the stairs of the basement. She could have hit her head and she could have suffocated.
And then she's sitting there dead and they're like, shit.
And she's 6 years old.
Right. And they're sitting there like, shit, what do we do?
Yeah, we're fucked. We got to get out of here. Then
yeah.
I mean, there's no point in taking her now. That's why I'm suspect of the garrote theory. The trafficking is very, very interesting, and
because it wasn't as known a thing.
No, but she was coveted. People would come to pageants to watch her. I mean, she had.
What would a trafficker do? What would a trafficker do? Where would they get the people that they're selling to somebody else?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they would have to.
You're talking about sick people, right? Really sick people.
The sickest people.
What are they going to do to like? Where are they going to get? You know, I think these movies.
Well, they could have duct taped their mouth. They could have done something.
Movies scare the shit out of me when I see these movies and shit. Like, you know, like
they could have duct taped her mouth. They could have done anything else to try to subdue her. I don't think a garrote was the best choice if it was trafficking. Like, I don't think you're going to use a garrote to control her. I think
when I was growing up. You're probably about less than 10 years. When I was growing up, that used to, as a kid, that was like my big fear.
Oh, here too. We used to
always go. We always used to, like, you would hear these stories, if you remember. You would hear these stories about something that happened somewhere, right?
Yep.
And we used to. I don't know if you did too. I think you're still from the era where you would have.
No. We had a major
kidnapping. Your bikes everywhere, and you probably rode your bikes with your friends. You probably went out with your friends everywhere, right?
We had a major kidnapping in our area.
Okay.
And you probably don't know about it. It was Sarah Ann Wood. If you look it up, Sarah Ann Wood was kidnapped. She was a cheerleader, and I played against her team in Pop Warner football, and she was kidnapped in 1994 by Louis Lent. Her body hasn't been found to this day. And when that happened, it was wild. It was 93. Yeah, it was hectic. It was crazy as hell around here. Louis Lent was the guy that was found to kidnap her, but he has never given up the source of the body. He said he buried her in the Adirondack somewhere. They went in the winter, and they were like melting snow and melting, like trying to unfreeze the ground to dig to try to find her body, and they never found anything.
Jesus.
Did you look it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened, and that's when our parents were like hyper vigilant on, like, if you go out, make sure you're with someone, don't go too far. My parents were never worried about me because, like, Steven, no one's going to take Steven. Steven's 160 pounds. They're never going to get him.
At 10 years old, you're not going to get you. That's a battle that's not worth fighting.
Yeah.
No, it's just like I would say, like like my parents when I was in high school, they would be worried about me going to this or that. I was 200
They were
pounds.
never worried about me in high school. It was
No, I'm saying
more
like
worried
they
about
would
my
worry
brother.
about my mother, and I'll be like, Mom, I'm 210 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
if you're
Let
going to
him
go
try.
after, right? There are easier targets than
Yeah.
a target that would be a battle, right? It's so and it's always the what do you call it, deer theory, the wounded deer theory.
Yeah. 100%.
Why would you ever go after the harder target when you go after the easier target?
Yeah.
But it's but I remember when I growing up that there was some, I don't remember what it was that happened, but there's some things, and I remember they used to worry about, like, if you buy nowadays, obviously, because of those things during those time periods, those crazy cases, some of these serial killings, parents obviously are much more cognizant and aware, and they watch their kids, so much more so because of some of those things. And but yeah, it's I always it seems like it's an isolated intruder or a couple of intruders that.
Well, it was in Boulder. In Boulder, the police were not prepared to
They were
handle
not prepared.
of this magnitude.
No.
Never
It's
seen anything
amazing
like it.
if you don't have a good police force, it's very hard to.
Well, they don't see crime like that. I mean, the crime they see is
I have a thing that we should talk. I think would be good to talk about next time. Is the David Koresh.
I love David Koresh. I would love to talk about David Koresh.
Let's do that one next week.
You want to do David Koresh? Yeah.
Yeah, because I have multiple.
I just watched the Waco.
I've watched all of it. So
yeah,
because I've always wondered how
David Koresh and Jim Jones. I love them both. I would do both.
I always wondered how much of it was really the government's fault in the final salute, like the thing that ended up finally killing all of them, and how much this could have been prevented, and how much of it was David Koresh being so obsessive compulsive on of what he was doing, and then how much of the obviously there was some level of, like, he was marrying him kid, like there was all kinds of
48 kids. He was banging all the women there.
Wacky things going on. So it was a very it was a complicated issue because of the fact that you had probably, I'm not saying the people were normal, but the followers,
Branch Davidians,
they didn't have ill intentions, those people.
No.
Right? And David originally, when you watch the story, but David was paranoid, and Koresh and Koresh was,
well, he was on a lot of shit.
Yes, he was completely like
he was on a lot of amphetamines. He was crazy.
He went to deep depths of what's the word, like delusions. That's the word.
Very delusional. Yes.
Depths of delusions that he was able to get the people to follow.
He was Jesus Christ. Yeah.
And it was crazy because in the end, when all of them died, I feel like I always felt like, and then we could talk about this a lot more next time, but like I always felt like the government condemned all the Branch Davidians. If you've seen all the interviews after, they were condemned along with Koresh, when it was really Koresh and maybe his immediate followers that were the problem, but not the overall group of Branch Davidians who really were like, they were like hopeless people looking for.
Well, I think they got to a point where they realized we're fucked, and we have no way out of this.
Yes.
But
well, David did. David and his immediate followers did.
David was not going to retreat. David, there was no way. Do I think the government escalated the situation? Yes, I think they probably could have left them alone longer. I mean, they showed up with fucking tanks and
Yes.
armor, and they breached, and they knew what was going to happen if they
And they had
breached.
an insider already. When you watch the whole Waco thing, that guy was already in. He was already making headway. And he
Yeah.
already had Koresh's trust, where he
Yes.
could have probably gotten Koresh away. They could have just grabbed him.
Yeah.
And then they could have easily just grabbed him in one of their meetings, and then
They wouldn't have drank the Kool-Aid.
and then took the people who were drinking the Kool-Aid and kind of like got them off the cliff there. You know what I mean? That would have been easier than with David in there. You know what I'm saying? They don't know like those people.
Yeah, he barricaded himself in. They had that was it.
That was a crazy case. That was a crazy case.
I'm a huge fan of David Koresh and Jim Jones. I love cults. I'd be great in a cult.
You'd be a good. You'd be like a dangerous number 2 henchman in a cult, because you'd be like, I'll connect you with.
Yeah. Yes, whatever you need.
You'd be the connector. You'd be dangerous. You'd be more dangerous. You'd be more dangerous than the leader.
What do you mean? Auschwitz isn't in Germany?
Oh my God!
How did that happen? So to wrap this up, you're of the theory? Obviously, it was an intruder. It was not.
I think,
house. Or it could have been trafficking.
I think either trafficking, although you're right, that wasn't as big of a thing back then, but that was the time when it was really starting to.
It was starting to pick up.
Like the whole crazy Pizzagate thing that they talk about with the Clintons and all this crazy shit. Like, that was New York. Like, I don't know what's true and what isn't true, but that was the time period when a lot of this stuff was starting. So my theory, I have 2 theories, and I don't know if any of them are true. This is obviously I don't know anywhere near enough to know. I don't think the Ramseys did it.
They didn't. I don't think they did either.
I think that it was either someone that had some knowledge of the Ramseys, or knew of the Ramseys, or had some following of the Ramseys, or some sort of trafficking situation gone wrong, right? Gone wrong. And
something, regardless of what happened, whether it was trafficking or kidnapping or ransom, something did go wrong because she was killed. I don't think that was the plan.
Yeah.
I don't think that was the plan. I think maybe it was ransom and something happened and she was killed. Adam Williams commented this was done by higher ups.
Well, is there any theory to this?
May implicate the police.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, is there any relation? Like, it's a different time period, right? Is there anything where either the police, not the police itself, but a person from within the police department, or someone related to someone within the police department, or that knowledge, so like did they know of this? Did they know, or I mean, that's a hard stretch too. I mean, I don't know.
Well, the money issue is what I can't get over. How would they know?
Makes you think. The ransom note is what would make you think that it was someone that knew the Ramseys, or the Ramseys themselves, right?
That knew his exact bonus.
Yes,
bonus. That's what I can't get over.
That's where the whole trafficking thing, like, look, if you were to go to Mexico, right, when the cartels are running, like, I don't know, a town. Let's say the cartels kind of control a town. Well, they also control the police, right?
Yep.
So something happens or something is done by, let's say, the cartel, like in Mexico, and the police know of it. But if the police know the person, but they're a cartel member, and that could badly reflect on them, or then that could be you know what I'm saying? Like, it's.
Wow. Adam Williams says definitely committed by either Epstein or Epstein-like people. Epstein's main victim just committed suicide. Yeah, okay. This country world is run by pedophiles in every government.
It's quite a theory. Well, that would go to my version of a trafficking. I mean, I don't know if it's a. Obviously, it's a pedo case, definitely. It's definitely a pedo case.
Yeah, she was raped.
That's my thing. Is this a trafficking case? Like, it wasn't known back then. You know, the mid '90s. Like, this stuff was probably going on, but it wasn't out there.
It was not labeled as trafficking.
To expose it, right?
Right.
You have social media to expose that there was some level of trafficking. And that's where the trafficking is where you get into the corruption element.
Yes.
Of police, right? In the small town police.
Yeah. Making $40,000 a year. Yeah.
You'll never know, though. We'll never know.
No, I think we will. I think in our lifetimes we will. I think that. Yeah, I think. For me,
I only got about 30 years, Steve. So if you got your house.
I think DNA will match eventually.
If you were to go to this guy's theory, let's say Adam Williams' theory,
he's right about the time frame with Epstein. You know, the Clintons were in office, 96. Yep. It's just leading up to it.
And it made it, and what he's saying is like Epstein-like, meaning a trafficking version, because Epstein was involved with like teenagers, right, or something. I think his thing was
young girls, yes,
right, but not
that young,
not toddlers /
14 and above.
It's a different trafficking source, you know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So some other trafficking source, and I mean listen. There's a lot of devil worshiping, crazy shit that goes on that and that was a time period, you know, that was just the beginning of the internet, right? That was just like, you didn't have information like you had now. Like, shit, if you go back to I mean, this is way before our time, but you go back to like the 50s and 60s and the 40s, like you wouldn't even know, like there's probably things going on that no one's ever talked about that we would never even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Adam says, yes, a trafficking version, not Epstein himself. There's a photo of a woman right next to JonBenét that looks like Ghislaine Maxwell. I doubt it's her, but it looks like her. Wow. That's crazy. I'm going to look for that. He could be right. You could be spot on. It could be trafficking, but I just think they.
Did we miss our calling? Should we have been well, it wouldn't be CIA. What would it be?
What, investigators? You want to be investigators?
No, I said should we have been? It wouldn't be CIA though. What would it be? What would it be that investigates this? Like
cold case investigators?
No, it wouldn't be cold case. It would be higher, wouldn't it? Because if you're trying to pull out trafficking, wouldn't that be CIA? Like, what was the movie I watched? Oh, it was the series. It was crazy. It was about.
Well, there's special investigation units that investigate trafficking.
I'm trying to think though. It was a group that was. What was I've watched, like you, I've watched so many of these I mean Narcos and all these kind of things. So there's some of it blends together. I'm trying to remember what it was.
It's not the ATF. It's not the CIA.
It might have been Narcos, or I think it was Narcos, or one of those.
Oh, from Netflix. Yeah.
Did you watch Narcos?
Yeah, of course.
Which originally started with the whole Pablo Escobar deal, and then, but what was interesting was like when you get to the deep depths of these things.
El Chapo, yep.
The level of El Chapo, I think it was El Chapo. I don't know.
Yeah.
It might have been the El Chapo one.
It was El Chapo.
How they were like, the guy was going so deep, like they were so deep undercover on this stuff, and the layers and levels of I mean, it's so intricate how they're running it. They're running it like governments. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
They
They
do.
run these operations like governments or like large corporations.
There's special online auctions where you can purchase these women. I mean,
It's crazy.
it's so sophisticated how it works. And that could have been the very beginning of it. But again, I go back to the ransom number and the garrote. That's the only thing that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the rudimentary methodology of that could only have lent itself to something bad happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm
before
saying.
You accomplish the goal.
She's a little girl. I
Right.
mean, you could have just duct taped her and brought her out, or shot her up with something. I mean, they could have gone to a veterinarian and got ketamine and given her a little special K, knocked her out, carried her out, party done. But they had so many complications along the way that they ended up killing her. And then sexually, but I think the sexual assault was to probably cover up.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Cover up
or to indict the parents.
Yeah, it was probably done to do that and
to throw them off the scene.
Yeah, to throw them off. But yeah, so I do go with the intruder / trafficking angle. I just think it was botched.
He posted something here below. What is this? Look up Franklin cover up.
If you don't know about it, we will.
Go,
Adam, thank you,
Adam. Thank you, Adam, for your contribution. We don't know who you are. You're a little scary that you know all this stuff, but
no, it's not. I mean, he's right.
Thank you for knowing it all.
He's right about it. So that's awesome. So you want to do the Branch Davidians in Waco next week?
Yes, I guess let's talk that.
I love that. I have no problem doing that.
Jim Jones, by the way,
that's my favorite.
All the crazy cult things.
That's my favorite one.
To this day is even crazier than the Branch Davidians because how he got all those people
to move to freaking Ghana.
Is that where it was? Was it Ghana?
It was they built in Georgetown,
South America.
It was South America. Yeah.
It's not Ghana's in Africa, dude.
Oh, okay. Well, it was Georgetown somewhere.
Jim Jones.
Where was Jonestown? I thought it was
Guyana.
Well, I was close. Ghana,
you're closer. But just for your reference, Ghana's in Africa.
Guyana. Yeah. And they built, and it was basically slave labor, how he put them to work to build this place in the 90-degree heat. And then the congressman and the parents, the families come to visit and they all get killed. It's great. But I'll do the Branch Davidians next week.
You guys, I think you know what other one would be an interesting one too. Do you remember the cult where they had the sneakers on and they all
No.
You remember that one? The they all had the Nikes on.
No, I do not know. I do not know that one.
They were called Heaven's Gate. You don't remember Heaven's Gate?
No, I do not know Heaven's Gate. I'll look it up.
Oh, you gotta look that up too.
I will read about it for sure.
That's a crazy one too. That's not as massive. It was 25 people, but it's pretty crazy.
I'll read about that for sure. So
all right. Well, till next time.
We got some good ones. And then Friday, depending on what you want to do. If you want to do the baseball team,
let's do that Friday. Yeah.
They're on a 13-game win streak. They're rallying. Chris DeCitis said. So we'll try.
Let's do it.
We'll try to do baseball. We'll try to.
We'll make it a special edition. See how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Husky hardball. We'll see how it goes. You can come up with a nice graphic for it.
Yeah, let's.
And Billy the Liquor Guy one ended up doing pretty well. It popped up to 400 or 500 viewers.
Oh, Billy the Liquor Guy's over 500 now.
Yeah, see, I told you.
Rebel Republic from the other day, I'm telling you, it's going through the roof.
Oh, I saw it. I just posted it because I get yelled at for posting
so funny.
And yeah, I get yelled at for posting it, but it's funny.
Who yells at you?
Mainly Ooey, but it's okay. It was funny.
Episode. We didn't talk about anything crazy.
No, we didn't. Yeah, we'll do Husky hardball. I like that. And then you got Belcourt tonight, and then I got Andrew Adams, and then I'm gonna try to get the meeting set with Billy's agents to help us. And Billy has an agent here who can also probably help us.
All right. Till next time.
All right. So remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw it back at life.